Welcome to the Know. I'm Ashley Jenkins.
And I'm Meg Turney.
It's a bad time to be two things: a pirate who downloads stuff for free, or a consumer who pays for stuff, which accounts for a lot of people, probably.
This is thanks to two different issues though, so, let's tackle them one at a time.
The first is for the pirates. You know who you are. Several articles have popped up in a bit of hysteria because an updated policy found in Windows 10 gives Microsoft permission to monitor your PC and disable illegitimate copies of games.
FreeOS is a trick. Run!
The update comes via a change to the end-user license agreement that stipulates it may automatically check your version of the software and download any software update or configuration changes, including those that prevent you from accessing the services, playing counterfeit games, or using unauthorized hardware peripheral devices. Depending on what numbers you choose to believe, it's not surprising that some software companies would want to protect themselves from what they see as blatant theft.
Sure, we've all heard Ubisoft's claims of 93 to 95% piracy of their PC games, which is probably why they don't even seem to try on some of their PC ports, but they're not the only ones crying wolf, so loosen the grip on your pitchforks.
Indie developer Spelagon, who released a game called Heavy Hoger a few years ago, confirmed on the indie gamer forums that after a year and a half, 99.8% of people who'd played the game never dropped a dime for it. That's a really high percentage. Next Rage, the indie studio behind Age of Thrones, similarly claimed a 90 to 95% piracy rating.
And that's why we have free-to-play games with microtransactions. They already know most people probably won't pay for shit, but if you won't buy a whole game, maybe you'll buy a dumb little costume.
In the interest of being fair though, it is important to note that pirated copies not quite the same as lost sales. There's no way to put a percentage figure on it, but it is common sense that if someone couldn't get something for free, that doesn't mean they just run out and buy it. Other people justify their piracy as a demo because, well, actual demos are rare these days, and others puff up their chests and extemporize, big word, that they don't want to support the publisher or developer because of some imagined wrong, but not supporting them doesn't mean they, don't want to play the game anyway.
Some developers even see a benefit to piracy. Famously, the developers behind Hotline Miami 2 urged fans in Australia to pirate the game after it was refused legal classification in the country. And even the Next Rage guys like to think that the pirated copies served as a way to market the game via word of mouth. Even non-gaming software can see benefits. Would Photoshop be as dominant of a power as it is today if kids hadn't downloaded, become proficient with it in their dank memes, and graduated into the workforce into, well, making dank infographics?
So it's not all bad, but it is still mostly bad, at least as far as game makers are concerned, which is how we've ended up with dirty words like DRM and Uplay in our vocabulary.
And now we're all learning a valuable lesson about EULAs.
Another vocabulary word. To be fair to this one though, it appears to be more general across your entire Microsoft account, not a sneak attack for Windows 10 specifically, which is how it's been reported in a lot of places. Instead, it actually calls out services like Xbox Live. Now that is becoming more tied to Windows 10 for the PC gaming push, and Xbox and Windows games published by Microsoft is another specific callout. So Windows 10 gaming could be affected. Could.
As for whether it's likely to be enforced across every game and piece of software on your PC, well, not really, honestly. The terms and services seem to indicate that they could lock pirates out of their service for first-party software, but it's actually not all that easy to determine who is and is not a pirate without invasive DRM. Even the numbers from devs seem to rely simply on an online check in the game to see how many people have played it versus how many people have bought it. The likelihood of this turning into a YouTube DMCA kind of situation with publishers going on rampages against pirates is really slim given the risks. I mean, who wants to potentially mess with legitimate owners to catch the jerks who wouldn't have bought your game in the first place?
Yeah, who would? Which brings us to the second issue: legitimate game owners now having trouble playing their games because of that DRM. In our opinion, this is a much bigger deal than even the Microsoft EULA because it does affect actual paying customers.
If you've been gaming on your PC for a while, you've probably got a funky twitch whenever you hear the words Safedisc or SecuROM, 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 whatever you want to call it. The two were both used heavily as anti-piracy measures for years and were constantly the focus of controversy for messing up games and PCs and conflicting with other software. 2003 to 2008 were dark times,
Dark
kids.
times.
Luckily, a lot of that has fallen by the wayside as Steam has become the distribution method of choice for the majority of games, but owners of those older games are now in a spot of trouble with Windows 10 because neither of those DRM systems work with Windows 10 and neither do the games they're protecting.
In an interview with German YouTuber Rocket Beans TV, Microsoft supporter Schneider-John discussed how all games that run on Windows 7 should also run on Windows 10. There are just two silly exceptions: antivirus software and stuff that's deeply embedded into the system needs updating. And then there are old games on CD-ROM that have DRM. He went on, saying this DRM stuff is also deeply embedded in your system, and that's where Windows 10 says, sorry, we cannot allow that because that would be a possible loophole for computer viruses. That's why there are a couple of games from 2003 to 2008 with SecuROM, etc. that simply don't run without a no CD patch or some such.
So you've got to crack your own game just to run it. It's like baby pirate school.
It's easy to see how this isn't a huge issue since most of us aren't playing games that are that old on a regular basis, and if we are, we may not be playing a CD-based version. If you're like me, you've probably already lost all those copies anyway and had to rebuy them on Steam, if the mood takes you. But the point is that this DRM, which was intended to protect the game from piracy, is now hurting only legitimate users. Pirates are playing those games just fine.
We may complain about Steam customer support an awful lot, but let's just take a minute to be grateful for the garbage it saved us from, okay?
Thank you, Gaben. Blessed be thy game. Please give us Half-Life 3. Amen. Do either of these issues affect you? Leave us your best self-righteous pirate impression in the comments, and for all the buried pressure news, remember to like this video and subscribe to the Now.
Indicate that they could lock pirates, but they're not the only ones crying wolf, so fuck.
Publisher, developer, because of some nope, we gotta go back.